embarrassing. It may not be possible. But for those who can, let me at least see you, even if for a moment. Um, so we will begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimaya Sangyana Jnana Chakshrumitam Ye Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are on 10th canto, chapter 85, verse 10. And in here, Lord Krishna is instructing Vasudeva, but Vasudeva, his father, would like to see Krishna. He said, actually, he's coming to realization, look, you're God, you're not my son. Let me see you as God. And Krishna's not very favorable to that. Krishna wants him to see his father as the father. And Vasudeva here is describing how Krishna is everything. And so we'll get to this. There's a series of verses like it, and the verse chosen today is one of these. So, Indrayam Tvi, Indrayanam Tvam, Devastad Anugraha, Avoboda Bhavan Budir, Jivasan Smriti Sati. You are the power of the senses to reveal their objects. The senses presiding demigods and the sanctions these demigods give for sensory activity. You are the capacity of the intelligence for decision-making and a living entity's ability to remember things accurately. Sri Vithnath Chakravarti points out that whenever one of the material senses is involved with its object, the presiding demigod of that particular sense organ must give his sanction. Acharya Vishwanath Chakravarti explains the word anusmriti in this verse in its higher sense as one's recognition of himself as an eternal spiritual soul. So, what's going on here? There is an old saying, the devil made me do it. That I act out in a certain way, and it's the devil made me do it. In Christianity, the devil becomes a personification, and even in our tradition, we adopt some of the Christian overlay, and we look at Maya as the devil, and the devil made me do it. Now, I'm sure some of you have had that experience where you did something that, gee, I could have done better, and the devil made me do it. So who is actually responsible? Well, by reading this verse, we might say, you are the power of the senses to reveal their objects. And you are the presiding deities, the demigods. You are the capacity of the intelligence for decision-making. So if all of that is Krishna, and Vasudeva is talking to his son this way, are we actually responsible for what we do? Is Krishna responsible? Are we responsible? Who's responsible? Do we have existential responsibility? Now, has anybody here familiar with the post-World War II existential philosophers of, let's say, Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre? Anybody familiar with them? Anybody want to tell me what their philosophy was?
I've heard their names many times, and I think it boils down to life makes no sense, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh, uh,
right. That there's no order in the world, that there's no God, that there's no inherent meaning to anything, and that sort of life is at best a play and generally a farce, and to such a point that people like, and one of the Bhagavatam speakers recently was talking about Sartre's nausea, that Sartre had this philosophy that was like, if you really concentrate on existence, that you'll become sort of so anxious, you'll become nauseous, because again, that there's no inherent bearing to anything.
I think everything might. We're back now. Okay. Can you repeat the last sentence? Everything froze.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I was saying that actually one of the recent morning Bhagavatam speakers was referring to Sartre's nausea and talking about sort of the that book where Sartre talks about, if one, I think the main character sitting on a park bench and starts really, really thinking about the meaning of existence. And because there's no underlying structure in his way of thinking and no meaning and no philosophy, that you actually become kind of nauseated, like boredom leading to anxiety, leading to actual nausea, that like disgust at the lack of meaning, but also anxiety at the lack of any inherent meaning.
Yeah. He and Kabul, after World War II, the world was in chaos. Imagine, you know, Hitler and Japan trying to rule the world, almost succeeded. If Hitler he had a peace treaty with the Soviet Union, and he, of course, took over France and Belgium, was attacking England. If he had not decided to attack the Soviet Union on the Eastern Front, probably would have won the war, at least negotiated a surrender. His goal was eventually to unite with the British. Of course, the British king has a lot of Germanic blood. Uh, we know Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, didn't even speak English when he became prince, a Germanic king. So he figured they would eventually unite and rule the world and get rid of inferior races. Um, so Europe was mostly destroyed, had two world wars in the 20th century. So after that, the existentialists were thinking, God, this world makes no sense. It's a crazy world. So Sartre came up with the idea um, that existence precedes essence, meaning we are born into existence without a purpose and are free to create our own meaning. We can just create our own meaning in this world. And then whatever I do, whatever moral decision I make, I am saying this is how the whole world should be. And I have the weight of that on my shoulders. And books he wrote included Being and Nothingness, No Exit, Nausea. You get the picture. It wasn't a very pleasant picture, as he. Um, so there's this rebellion against the idea. Well, the question is, who is in control? And it's a good question. Sartre would reject the devil made me do it. He said, we are in control, but do we really have that much control? And it comes down to how much freedom we have. A popular author with a bestseller, Sapolsky, just came out with a book, And the book says, forgot the precise title, but the theme of the book is we have no free will. So if the demigods are pulling all the strings, as this verse seems to imply, do we actually have free will? Can we, or, I mean, according to Sartre, we have total free will. According to Sapolsky, we have no free will. Everything's all determined. So, anybody here feel they have total free will? Or anybody here feel they have no free will? Or can somebody tell me, I'm getting very bewildered right now. Do I have free will? I mean, I'm picking up my morning hot drink. Was this predetermined? Or did I have free will to do it? And how much free will do we have? It's actually a very important question. That's the essence of what's going on here, this question of free will. So I'm going to ask some of you to help me so I don't get into too much of an existential crisis today. Tell me how much free will you have. Does anybody want to share with me how much free will you have? Yes.
Sadly, Didi.
Hare Krishna, thank you very, very much for today's class. I thought before I came to Krishna consciousness, I thought that I have a somewhat control over my choices, or what I do or not to do, and so on. But to be honest, after that, I came to Krishna consciousness and read many of the Shastras, Prabhupada's books, and Prabhupada's purport. Now I understand that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the enjoyer, controller, everything. So, and whatever I'm doing or not doing, it's controlled by him. According to what I have, according to the role I got when I born in this life, this is the role I have, being mother of 6 children, do whatever I have done until now, study or not study, work or not, everything was already programmed in me to be, to do. That role was mine. But in this way, still, according to what I have gone through, this is what I understand. Okay, it was a meaning to why I did go through certain things. I have that understanding. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And what the last one, what I read was Srimad Bhagavatam 4, 24, 35, where it's in the purport, it says that the supreme controller, the doer, the enjoyer, everything is Krishna. So I can't, it's difficult for me to understand. Yes, I know, of course, he's the creator, he's the controller, everything. But then it's difficult for me to think he's the controller, he's the supreme controller, but then I have control over my choices, for instance. For instance, I was a very, very bad, big smoker. I smoked cigarette in many, many, many years. But then suddenly I stopped it. Not when I came to Krishna consciousness, long before. I just suddenly stopped. I didn't smoke. It almost killed me, but still, I stopped and I didn't do it. And I was happy. I thought, wow, I did it. I made it. I did it. But then when I came to Krishna consciousness, I got the understanding, no, it's not me. It's Lord Krishna. It was not me. It was Krishna. You know what I mean?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Now, that's helpful. That's helpful. Let's go on to Sarab Shah. You have a comment? We need you to unmute.
Thank you for the class today, Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. What I was gonna say is always, for so long we think that we can control things, the ego, we think we can control everything, but I'm realizing more and more, I, it, sometimes you work so hard for something and it doesn't happen, and then something you're not working work-wise, whatever, anything, and then it happens so easily. So sometimes there's no logic, and more I'm realizing that I'm not in control, or there's some bigger power. But still, I would love to hear more from any of the other classmates, yourself. It got to a point where I have a controlling nature where, hey, I can succeed in everything I do, this, that. But sometimes, again, going back to the example, you work extremely hard on something and it doesn't work out the way you want. And then sometimes you don't work a lot, and before you know it, it's working out in a series of things. So that tells me I don't have control. The ego mind wants to say I can control things. I guess we can put in the effort, is what I've learned from Krishna and the Gita, that we put in the effort, and don't worry about the outcome. And that's what I've been trying to tell myself. So that's my.
Okay.
I have no
very good.
understanding. I would love to get more wisdom.
Well, I don't know if I'll have more, but I'll add a few thoughts in a bit. Venu Miduri, Dasi?
Hare Krishna, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, better now.
Okay, great. Yeah, I read a lot of Western philosophy growing up, and this question of free will versus determinism is obviously one of the central challenges of philosophy. And I just, one of the things I love so much about Krishna consciousness is how sort of beautifully and swiftly it disposes of this question. And as I understand it, and please correct me, is that building on what other speakers have said, that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Krishna is not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. So he is the controller and overseeing everything and all of the outcomes. And it's for him to enjoy, and it's his plan and desires. And so he is in control, but he gives us, as Prabhupada says, minute free will, like sort of in accordance with our minuteness of our being. Like we're sparks from his fire. We have accordingly a very minute free will, and that why we have this free will is ultimately so that we can choose to love him. Because if we were forced to love him at gunpoint, then that wouldn't be much fun. And also, you can imagine if you're the ultimate controller, just like with AI, it's also for your pleasure and amusement that you would have something be able to think on its own and make its own choices. Because if you just know how everything's going to turn out, maybe it's not so interesting. So I always understand there's an element sort of play behind it as well. But ultimately, it's about our choice to love him. So it's both. He's in control and we have minute free will.
I like that. I'm going to give an example later of what you said that helps me put it in context. But first, we'll hear from Bhima Prabhu. Bhima, there you are.
Haribol Prabhu. I didn't hear that you had called on me. I feel like the kid in the back that never raises his hand, and the teacher can't see me in the back of the classroom. I just wanted to say that as someone who has always chosen experience over wisdom, so to speak, that as a person who journals and likes to write and likes to experience things, and even if I know something to be wrong, when I was younger, I would say I'm in, just to see, just to have it in my coffers. That it is true that one comes to a point. Hold on for a second. I'm feeding the horses. One comes to a point that, of course, Adi always said, there's this whole, each cell, each cell in our body is a whole factory. The mitochondria acting as the brain, the cell wall, uh, the uh, the division of cells to create more cells to create an organ, et cetera, et cetera. What to speak of the binding force of atoms. This is all, and it composes us. It composes the reality that is the material nature that we have been thrusted into. What to speak of the subtle things, the ability to speak, to observe. All these things are outside our control. All these things. I mean, we can't even stop ourselves from having to bow down to the call of nature. Such an embarrassing little thing that we can't. We could be, in a accident, and if we have to, the call of nature, we have to succumb to it. So, you come to that point whereby, as Prabhupada said, when he said, "Make me dance, make me dance," that wasn't just a poetic effect. We come to understand that we are Krishna's puppets, and that in our lives there's 1,000 lessons, maybe even dozens every day, little lessons, and we come to understand that if it isn't love, if we're not pure devotees, and if we're not acting out of love, which is surrender, which is a surrender, abandonment of our own will to the will of Krishna, that if it isn't love, it will be a lesson that we will run up against. We will run up against hurdles and challenges. And I just wanted to finish here that often we say what a miracle it was, Prabhupada at his age and frail in health, created a whole movement, changed the world, literally changed the world. This one man changed the world on his own. And we see that when Krishna made him dance, when he surrendered his will, when he realized that the control that he did have was only through love. And we think that, oh, I have to give up control, that I have to give myself away. But when we realize that once we give ourselves to Krishna, that our love, our desire, I want to do this, I want to write, I want to do art for Krishna, I want to take care of the cows for Krishna, that those desires, that wanting to control what we do for Krishna become, and out of love, of course, that we actually retain or regain control based on that love, because then Krishna works with us and allows us to, fulfill our desires. He's the reservoir of our desire, of fulfillment of our desires. But that we also have to realize that there are many lessons on this path until we finally surrender to the fact that Krishna is everything to us, that there truly is no separation between us and Krishna. That this isn't a battle for control. Hare Krishna.
Thanks, you said that well. So, we've all gone to the airport. And when we get to the airport, we can look at a board and there's all these flights. Actually, I've done this where one time the old US Air had a deal where you pay X dollars and then you have unlimited flights for 2 weeks. And if I was doing more than 2 flights, it was a good deal. So sometimes I'd get to the airport. I'd say, I wonder what city I should go to, because I always had a lot to do, many obligations and responsibilities. So I'm at the airport. I'm looking at the board and I'm picking a city. Okay, that's the one I'll go to. In those days, flights were not so full like now. You can get a seat. So I'll go to Pittsburgh. I'm going to go to Columbus. It was all in the Northeast. I'm going to go to Cleveland. I'll pick a city. That's where I'm going to go because things to do, people to see. So I make that choice. Once I make that choice, then I get on that airplane. Now my choice is very restricted. I can take an orange juice or a 7-Up. I can recline my seat or not recline my seat. Basically, my choices are very limited, but I'm going to Cleveland if I like it or not, because that's where the plane's going. So there's no choice. I was on a plane once and somebody decided they didn't like where the plane was going and tried to hijack it. But that's a rare case.
No, but hey.
Oh, hey, we are going to mute him here. Okay, we got him muted. So we have a certain freedom, and then we give up that freedom. Once we get on the plane, then we have less degrees of freedom. And so it works that way. We have a certain amount of freedom, and we slowly give it up. How do we increase our freedom? Sartre and Camus and the other existentialists were very concerned about freedom because they'd been under the great repression of 2 world wars and dictators and all of those things. So how do we increase our freedom, all of us? Well, here's where Krishna gives some great advice in the Bhagavad Gita. And this chapter here is kind of hinting at this. We get maximum freedom by the modes of nature. For example, if I am in the mode of ignorance, I have very little freedom. I did a program at myself and Hridayananda Maharaj were setting up an institute for Vaishnava studies at a very prestigious institute, the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. And Prabhupada had advocated that we join this Graduate Theological Union, part of related to UC Berkeley, a very prestigious thing. And Stilson Judah, the very first librarian of this union of different theological colleges, known as Holy Hill, just on the top of the hill by UC Berkeley. Stilson Judah was the first librarian, and he wrote one of the early books on Krishna consciousness, and he invited Prabhupada to be part of this union. By that time, we didn't hardly had any devotees who had higher degrees. We weren't ready to join. Stilson Judah loved the devotees, though he was a Christian guy. In fact, how many of you here have ever read Stilson's book? I think it's called something about the Blue Boy. I forgot the precise title now. Has anybody read Stilson Judah's one of the earliest books on the Krishna movement? Stilson Judah, very interesting fellow. He was and I had met him.
Who was
Stilson,
Stilson Judah? You froze Prabhu a little bit.
Stilson Judah was a very prominent scholar who wrote one of the first books on the Hare Krishna movement, academic books, Hare Krishna and the Counterculture. And it was a complimentary book. And Prabhupada met Stilson Judah in Los Angeles, and they had just formed the Graduate Theological Union, and Stilson invited him to join the union. That time, we weren't ready for it. In 1996, we tried to follow Prabhupada's instructions, and started reviving the Institute at the Graduate Theological Union. I moved to California, started offering courses and developing our relationship with them. Meanwhile, I visited Stilson. Stilson had had a weird stroke. And in this stroke, he lost the entire ability to communicate. I don't mean just talking, just the ability to communicate. That part of the brain went down. So he could play tennis. He could, well, he couldn't drive like that, but function, get dressed, do everything himself, but no communication. When I brought to his house some pakoras and samosas, he just lit up very happy, but he couldn't communicate anything about how he's feeling or thinking. It's a very odd stroke. And then Stilson died. After he died, Amoga Leela, my godbrother, got a call from Stilson's son. Come to my house. We have something for you. Unbeknownst to his whole family, in his garage, Stilson had an altar of Radha Krishna and was worshiping it every day. But because he was ostensibly a Christian, he kind of kept it hidden from his family. So he got this call, please come and pick up this material because we think it's more valuable to you. We don't even know what it is. And it was worshiping pictures of Radha Krishna, Prabhupada, and like any one of us would do. So I'm mentioning Stilson Judah, for a reason. We'll get to that. So Stilson Judah, this wonderful man who had met Prabhupada and was so touched by his study of the movement that he became a closet devotee. But because of his Christian position, he kept it kind of hidden. So we went out and tried to start this institute. And the president of the institute, I'll leave his name off a recording, but he had invited us, Graduate Theological Union, Rita Anandaraj, Amrendra, and myself, tried to organize, invited us to work on it. And we started offering classes and doing things. And I took the president of the Graduate Theological Union on a tour of India with me. And when we met with the Minister of Education for the whole country, we're all in our suits and ties. We go upstairs in his private elevator, and he greets Dr. So-and-so, glad to meet you. And he meets me, Mr. Cohen, I'm glad to meet you. And the host said, oh, this guy Cohen, he's a disciple of Prabhupada. So in front of the president of this Graduate Theological Union, the Minister of Education of the whole country gives me a giant hug. Never met me before, but a giant hug. Oh, a Prabhupada disciple. I'm so happy. So it's a very successful trip. We want to establish that Krishna consciousness is very bona fide and legitimate, and we should be a member of the Graduate Theological Union. And he was pushing for our membership. Then I get back to America, and I decided to, Rita Anandaraj and I decided to walk over to this president's house at 10 in the morning and give him pictures from our trip to India. Now, how does this relate to the class? You'll find out momentarily. We walk over to his house, and he and his wife are sitting on the front porch, drunk as a skunk. We realized they were functioning alcoholics. And after a while, he got fired from the job, and our attempt to be part of the union fell apart. Later on, it all did work out. Garuda was able to establish a relationship, and something good did come of it. But he was drunk. He was a functional alcoholic. So we couldn't tell that he was mostly drunk because you have something called functional alcoholics. And then he ended up as a position. Here he is president of a major institution. And after that, he became the custodian of the library of the Secretary of Agriculture under Dwight Eisenhower. Boy, is that a step down. A custodian at a small Christian school, because the guy was Christian, of a library correction of the Secretary of Agriculture under Dwight Eisenhower. What a fall from grace that was. Oh my gosh. But the point of the story is he couldn't control his senses because of the alcoholism. So he had no freedom. He knew what he wanted to do, but he couldn't do it because he gave up his freedom for the mode of ignorance. So we're in the mode of ignorance. We have virtually no freedom. Now, in the mode of passion, we have a little more freedom. We might be able to work hard and get something. Of course, sometimes we work hard and we don't get something. But there is a little bit more freedom. But when we get to the mode of goodness, then real freedom happens. Wow. Because in the mode of goodness, Krishna describes in the Gita, you get knowledge. I asked Prabhupada this question. Some of you may have the very same question. Now, it's not necessarily the same answer for any of us, but it was the answer for me, and I suspect for many of you will be the same. Here is the question. Which comes first, austerity or knowledge? Do we have to do great austerities, get up early in the morning, take our cold shower and blah, blah, blah in order to get understanding? Or do we get understanding and then comes austerity? How many of you think first it's knowledge? How many of you think it's first it's austerity?
I think knowledge comes first. How can there be austerity without knowledge? It's just
Yeah.
useless labor.
Yeah. Well, I asked that
I'd
question.
like to chime in on that particular
Go for
statement.
it. Go
Yeah.
for it, Pima.
I think through austerity, knowledge is revealed. It's simultaneous because, yeah.
Okay. I'll tell you what Prabhupada said to me, and I'll tell you my own realization. Jeffrey put, Brahma did 1,000 years of tapasya before gaining knowledge. The answer is, it depends on the circumstances. For somebody who's intellectually inclined, knowledge must come first. And Prabhupada said that to me because I'm kind of a nerd. So Prabhupada understood that. So for me, he said, you have knowledge and then you'll do austerity. For Brahma, he did austerity and then he got knowledge. So it's one of my typical trick questions. There is no right answer. It depends on who you are and the circumstances. So for me, I needed understanding. That's just how my psychophysical nature is. For Brahma, he had to go and sit there and meditate. So we said there's a saying, different slokes for different folks. So some of you, it may be one, some of you may be other. So I like asking these either or questions when the answer is really not either or, it's both. So it gets us to think a little deeper.
Now we know.
Yeah. It could go either way. And both answers are right. And what Bhima said is obviously also quite correct. So if we're in the mode of goodness, then knowledge can come. And in the mode of goodness, we have the most freedom. Because in the mode of goodness, we are not controlled by our lower self. We actually have the chance to do what is right. Why? Because it is the right thing to do. And that gives us tremendous freedom. I'll give an example, and I've told this story before, but it's a very dramatic story, and I'll share it again. I was sitting with Satyananda Swami, and I took him, when we're together, we like going off for some hours, just the two of us, so we can talk. So I took him to the Butterfly Atrium. And it's a beautiful atrium, part of the museum at the University of Florida. And you go through a double door airlock, so these butterflies can't escape, and you enter this jungle scene, and you sit there, and there are thousands of butterflies. They just land on you. And we're sitting on a bench. There's all these butterflies. And he tells me the story of his father. Again, I've shared this before to some of you, but it's worth repeating. And his father was a Nazi guard in a concentration camp. His father, who just died a few years ago, had nightmares the rest of his life with great regrets. But he was, as they say, just following orders. And when a bunch of very Orthodox Jews went to the staging area and they're marched to the so-called showers, which is really the death chambers. They were told, oh, we're giving you showers to get rid of body lice, but it was gas chamber. And his father noticed that they draw these butterflies on the wall. And his father asked one of these prisoners, why are you drawing butterflies? The prisoner says, I'm not going to tell you. If I tell you, you'll be more mad at me. And his father said, I can torture you and make you tell me, but I don't like hurting people. He wasn't a bad person. So just tell me. Okay, I'll tell you. And why they draw butterflies? Because a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. And Therefore, you really can't kill us. We just transform. But if you knew you couldn't kill us and we just transform our next body, whatever it is, then you'd be madder at us because you want us to, you want to destroy us. But our soul can't die. That prisoner had more freedom than the Nazi guard because he knew he couldn't be killed. He had knowledge. And with that knowledge, it was impossible for him to be killed. Only the body could be killed. He actually had the deeper understanding. And the father was so impacted by that for the rest of his life, he regretted that he didn't, run away from being a guard at a concentration camp. But the point of the story is that freedom comes with knowledge. So if Camus and Sartre, other existentialists, had real knowledge, then they'd have the freedom they're talking about. But the freedom they had, that existential freedom, which didn't give them happiness, it just gave them nausea and being in nothingness was a book, just sent them into a great despair. So here we see in this verse that Vasudeva is saying to Krishna that the demigods are in control. You are the capacity of intelligence for decision making. And all these abilities come from higher authorities. But he is not saying we don't have the freedom to make choices. We have the freedom. But once we make our choice of which airplane we're getting on, we're taking away our freedom. So the lesson here is to make the choice for goodness, and that will increase our freedom rather than take it away. With that, we only have 1 minute left. Is there any other comment or question?
Min has her hand.
Yes.
Good morning. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if we have enough time, but I was reading in the chapter where Dhruva Maharaj is returning home. There's a verse where he realizes that while he could ask, from God, the cessation of life and death, he asked for material things. And in that purport, Prabhupada speaks about this notion of independence and dependence. And it was so interesting how the real independence of a living entity is to always depend on God like a child to a parent. And you just spoke about this that we have tremendous freedom. And what is independence? Because this is something I always strive to be before I came to Krishna consciousness. I want to be independent so I could be free. So being free and having self-governing is what I thought was independence. So when you say that we have tremendous freedom when we act in the mode of goodness, what kind of freedom are you pointing to?
Well, I wish I had more time for that question because it's a very probing and important question. But fortunately, I don't have more time, so I can give a wise guy a short answer. But the question is, how much freedom do we have? It's usually often less than we think we have. But we do have freedom. We can make independent choices. Pawlowski, in his book, We Have No Freedom, tries to rationalize how we could be moral without any responsibility. It makes no sense to me. So I asked Prabhupada, what freedom do I have? And he gave a very wise comment that what is the one freedom that's more important than almost any other freedom, and that is association. In other words, if I associate with thieves, I will probably become a thief. If I associate with politicians all day, I'll become a liar. So the one freedom we have is who we associate with. And that will determine how free we become, because we associate with people who are striving for goodness, like Bhagavatam Class, we will be much freer and we'll feel it. But your brilliant question deserves a lot more time we have today, so we may have to wait to another time. And I know there's another hand raised, but I think that's the end of class, and I'm supposed to join a Zoom call now too. So I apologize for that. My greetings to all of you. I see some of my friends here, such as my good friend Henry, and all of you at the Bhakti Center, and you have the blessings of having Radhanath Swami in town now. So all of you get maximum freedom because you can make the choices to hear him speak. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Brahma Tirtha Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Shri Radha Murlidhar.
Spiritual Master, I know way by which we can obtain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. He opens my dark eyes and shows my heart. He is my Lord. Vedic scripture sing. Our scripture
Jai Srila Prabhupada and Jai Arjuna Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Afterglow. If Bhima Prabhu is here. Bhima Prabhu, please come to the phone. You will be answering questions in the afterglow. Sadhvi Dida, are you still here?
Yes.
You still have your questions? Would you like Bhima to answer? Is he worthy?
Oh my God! Don't say that. I'm the fallen person,
Let's
so
make sure. Let's make sure
I'm
he's here.
grateful.
Listen and hold it.
Yes,
Hold it.
I'm
Let's.
grateful for whoever answering my question. I am grateful. Yes, my question was he talk about the austerity or knowledge, but what I wonder, doesn't the austerity comes from strong belief in higher power? That's why you do the austerity. Austerity you do for God, all right? So if I do as austerity, isn't it the sign of strong belief in Supreme Lord? That's why you do this austerity to please Him, right?
Wonderful question, Bhima Prabhu. Isn't austerity by nature a sign of love for God? Bhima Prabhu, I can't believe you're not listening. Okay, he's probably busy with his horses, but would anyone like to speak on that? Austerity? I have some thoughts, but I'm wondering if there's another devotee who'd like to speak. Maybe Mitravinda Didi? Mitravinda Didi, would you like to speak on that? Austerity? Mitravinda? Devi Dasi? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Saurabh says, sounds like a good point. Yeah, it's very quick. It's a great question. Okay.
I'll mention something if you don't mind. Hare Krishna.
Emily, of course.
Yes. I actually I had the opportunity to have a conversation with BD when he was in New York recently. And he told me some of the same information that he mentioned today about his personal conversations with Prabhupada, and that specifically about the knowledge and austerity. So I had the chance to be in a slightly longer conversation with him about that. And if I remember correctly, that answer was customized for him by Prabhupada, which he also mentioned today. And it had to do with the idea of don't just do something for the sake of doing it because you're imitating other people. So if other people are engaging in austerity and you're like, oh yeah, I want to do the same thing. I should get up 3 o'clock in the morning. I should also fast like him. If he's fasting 5 hours, I'll do 6. So it's sort of like, don't be a poser, like don't pretend to know what you're doing. And for some people, the pretending like doesn't lead to understanding. It's just more pretending. So in his case, it was as he explained, he was told you have to understand what you're doing first and then engage in austerity, or else the austerity is kind of useless and it's kind of, it's like a joke kind of thing. So that's what I understood. But I also appreciate that it totally depends on the personality, your personality, and just being honest about why you're engaging and what you're doing. And yeah, so it's got to be customized to the individual. I just wanted to repeat what I remember him saying a couple of weeks ago.
Great. Thank you,
Thank you
Emily,
very much.
for channeling Brahma Tirtha Prabhu after he left. Yeah, see, Sadhvi, you were so sincere. For you, austerity is a natural act of love. But for some other people, if you go to the gym to kind of pump up your muscles and look cool and attract girls, that's austerity, but it's not directed in the right direction, you know. But for you, Sadhvi, specifically, austerity is an act of love for Blue Boy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sadhvi. Okay, Adipusha Prabhu, please speak. You haven't spoken today. Did Prabhupada inspire you to speak?
We do pray to Srila Prabhupada, asking him what to say. Venu Mataji explained very nicely about freedom. That we have limited freedom. For example, suppose you jump in a river that's going very quickly, 20 miles an hour in the southern direction. Once you jump in it, you have to go 20 miles an hour in that direction. But you have a choice whether to jump in it or not. So we do have, as she said so nicely, a certain amount of freedom. And my understanding, although I could be corrected if anybody can, maybe I don't have it understanding right, that Krishna always, even though we might be difficult in the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion than it would be in the mode of goodness, my understanding is that Krishna always gives us freedom. I just heard yesterday, Billy Graham was talking about the incident where he went across the Sea of Galilee, and then there was this madman running around naked and dirty, and he was infested, possessed by a legion of demons. But even though he was so covered over and he'd been like that for years, he looked at Jesus and he said, Lord. And Jesus sent all the demons out of him. And the man was recovered and was in his right mind and was peaceful and was restored. So I understand that there are situations where we've made bad choices, so we have less freedom. Oh, there's Ram. Look at this beautiful kid. Hare Krishna, Ram.
Don't want Adipusha, Prabhu. He's listening.
Yeah, he is listening. Hello, Hare Krishna. Krishna's in your heart. So that we sometimes put ourselves in a difficult position to make choices, like when you're in the animal species or something. But it's not by our own ability that we're rescued. Krishna's always there, calling us, reaching out to us, and he comes to us even when we're in very fallen condition. How wonderful is Krishna? That he gives us that minute independence. Prabhupada uses those words. I was going to ask Brahma Tirtha a question, but he's gone now, huh?
Maybe Emily can handle it. Let's see.
Emily, can you hear me?
I can, but I'm sure I can't.
I will ask it tomorrow. Then I'm not going to ask unless you give me
No,
permission.
ask.
Okay,
Ask.
okay. We chant the offenses to the holy name, and it says that it's offensive to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna to be one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas, Karma Kanda. That it's offensive to be thinking that our sadhana is a ritualistic activity for fruitive activity, to get some fruitive result. And there's also a statement. What else did I read? Prabhupada was saying that, well, the second verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is Bhagavatam class, right? So the second verse says, Dharma Projita Kaitava, that this Bhagavatam kicks out cheating religion. I have the Bhagavatam on the dashboard of my vehicle, and we had one of the volunteers yesterday said, "Can I look at that?" And then she asked, "How can there be cheating religion?" So, what is cheating religion? It's religion, but it doesn't seem to be on the highest level of application. What kind of cheating religion gets kicked out? Ram, what do you think?
There's a religion that teaches you that be good and you'll be rewarded materially, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Actually, we were reading that recently in the Bhagavatam, where it says there's a distinction between religious activity that is selfishly motivated and devotional service to Krishna. That sometimes people do ritualistic, auspicious activities mentioned in the Vedas for the sake of promotion to heavenly planets, or some kind of pious activity. Where but pure devotional services, it's called a ahetukiya pratiyata, unceasing, unmotivated devotional service to Krishna is the only way to satisfy the self. So we may be dabbling around with some auspicious ritualistic activity for fruitive activity, karma kanda, but sooner or later, Krishna will pull us up.
So what was the question for Emily?
Well, the question was, what's cheating religion? And you
Okay.
explained
Let's
it
see.
very nicely.
Emily, what would the question be? Achieving religion.
What would the question be, or what would the answer be?
The answer.
I'm sorry.
Oh, the answer, because I could just repeat the question. I like your answer, actually. I think that does make sense. A religion that promises glory, if you do such and such. So that does make sense to me. I was just thinking about a moment ago about the river. Probably you said something about being in the river and it's 20 miles an hour and you're being dragged away. And I just keep thinking about how that's like such a great metaphor for our lives on a daily basis. And it's like by design, I guess, by divine design, that
Yeah.
we
Good.
just we are dragged into things, and then our bodies might be dragged away, but internally and in our hearts and in our souls, we can still chant and still, even though our bodies are being dragged, like we're chanting. And then for me, I don't know, maybe I'm going too much into the details, but for me, it's like there's also a distinction between I'm not just chanting because I'm in pain. I would be chanting anyway. I love God. It's not just because I need him, but I'm also, it's not just because I need him to help me. It's like an extra step where I'm like, but I also love him. So I think it makes us go through different layers, the suffering and the pulling and the river. It makes us, reflect as a human being. It makes us reflect on a more spiritual level. It makes us make that distinction that we're not just leaning on him to get saved. And then it happens again, and then again, and again, and again, and again. So I think by design, that's how we continue to grow our relationship.
Yeah, Krishna's designed the menu, and then we make selections, and there's progressive purification to the point where we're actually trying to please Krishna, and that means love, not business. And I was just thinking about Krishna. What does it say in the Bible? Yeah, somebody may be engaged in some kind of sinful activity, like a devotee falling down, deviating from the principles. But it says, who is a sinful person? One who delights in sin, reluctantly, based on some past bad habit or, you know, incident, we might fall down, but that's one thing. But to relish it, and was my friend Mario used to say when we were in college, we are sinking deep in sin. We like relishing and looking forward to it, rather than saying, "Oh God, oops, I did it again. Sorry, Krishna. Help me clean this up. I'm sorry about this." So that's an interesting distinction. Anyway, Krishna so wonderful. He gives us these options, and he's helping us to see what the blueprint is, what the map is, so we can make good choices. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Adikosha Prabhu. Min has her hand up.
Hare Krishna, you know what Adi Prusha just spoke about. I don't have an answer for you, but what you asked made me think about how this morning I remember, I don't know if it's Prabhupada who said it, but I remember hearing a few times that chanting japa is our austerity in this yuga or at this modern time. And so I was asking in my japa meditation this morning, Krishna, please not to let me not cheat him when I'm chanting. And how, going back to aren't all the austerities, aren't we doing it for God? I was in conversation with a devotee yesterday about austerities performed by Dhruva Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu and even Brahma, and how their intense austerities lead in different directions. And for Dhruva Maharaj, his austerity, even though it started with somewhat of a material desire, it leads to bhakti yoga. And how even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about dhyana yogis. And, if their consciousness is at where they just want to accumulate and attain siddhis, then there's no love of God there. So, our when we perform austerities, and it's just helping me to realize how important it is, even if it's a 1 round of japa or a half round of japa, how important it is for our consciousness to be at a right place in love of God. And I think this is what maybe the speaker was speaking about, that maybe it may help us to make the right choice in the mode of goodness that would lead us to true freedom.
Well, it's good to start somewhere. There's a what do they call it? Fire and brimstone story. There's a lawyer, David Gibbs. He's a preacher, but he's a lawyer. And he was giving the sermon. You know how they do the thing, the altar call? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is.
They give the sermon and they say, now anybody that wants to give their life to Jesus should come up here and kneel down before the altar rail and give themselves, You know that altar call? Anyway, and people come down. If you've ever seen any Billy Graham sermons, people come all the way to the front. They try to make a commitment and call.
We should try this in morning class.
Too long.
I'll call upon Jeffrey Eckler when the class is over. Let's see if he.
I'll call him to come up to say,
Yeah.
It's difficult sometimes to keep a train of thought when you try to contribute in the middle of what I'm telling you.
I know. I'm sorry.
I think
My
it's
monkey
difficult,
mind.
but maybe you could just hold on a minute and let me just tell the story quickly. I actually measured it one time. It takes 2 minutes. So he does this altar call, and this one college student comes running up from the back of the church and throws himself on the altar rail and weeping, crying hysterically. And so David Gibbs said to him later, he said, Michael, what in the world? You did give yourself to Christ, I remember last month. And now what is this? What's going on in your life that you just come weeping like this with such drama? And so Michael says, well, I go to college, but I work in the hospital, and it's an orderly in the emergency room on the weekends. And I was there, and this is in Cleveland, Ohio. And there's this man who works in a factory. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
He disappeared. There's a man who works in a factory where they have this sodium, some sulfate, some kind of salt that if it touches water, it bursts into flames. Right? Sometimes the guys who do the fire sacrifice, they pretend that they're lighting the fire by mantra. They have this salt sitting there under the wood, and then they take a few drops of water and they go, Om Apavitra, and then the fire bursts up, without a match or anything, just the water touching this stuff. So this guy takes a little test tube of this salt stuff to his house, and he has in a test tube, and then he's having a party, and the party gets a little sleepy. So he brings everybody in the kitchen. Come and see this. Come in. I work in this factory. We make this stuff, So he takes a little bit of it, and in the sink, somebody is washing some glasses. So there's like about 3 inches of water. So he sprinkles a little bit of it in the water, and the flames come shooting up out of the water, And everybody goes, wow, wow, do that again, do that again. So he's a little drunk, and as he goes over to the sink again, he slips and he falls with his face over the sink, and the whole test tube of the stuff goes in the water, and this gigantic flame comes up and sets his face on fire, right? So they throw him in the car and they bring him to the hospital, and this guy Michael is there, the orderly, and they put the guy screaming and yelling on a gurney, which is a little like a wheel wagon, and they say, Michael, hold his legs, because they're strapping him down because he's thrusting all around and screaming and yelling. And so they bring him in the hospital. And what they do when there's a burn injury, they put a sponge with benzene, which is flammable like gasoline, benzene and water, put a sponge on the wound to clean the wound, the burn wound. So this guy's face is all burnt. So the nurse comes and she puts the sponge with benzene and water on his forehead, and there's all this salt embedded in his skin, and this huge flame comes shooting out of the guy's forehead. And the guy is screaming and yelling, I'm burning in God's hell, I'm burning in God's hell. And every place where there's perspiration, there's little fire shooting out of his face, And so Michael says, when I saw that, I realized, this world is a very dangerous place. And I better get serious about religion because I don't want to be in this, precarious material position. So David Gibbs was saying to him, well, Michael, that is a good beginning, but actually our motivation might be fear of the Lord, but where we're really going with this is love of God, and that's more powerful than any kind of fear. Although that happens sometimes, that people begin, like she was saying with Dhruva Maharaj, he began practicing spiritual sadhana because his desire was to become a king, and he wanted to see Krishna. But then he became purified, and when he actually got purified by the sadhana, and he actually saw the Lord, he said, Lord, what I was looking for was just like broken glass, but now I found a precious jewel. I just want to serve you. I don't want to ask you for anything. So we can progress in our motivation to love. Anyway, I talked too long. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. I wanted to also tell you, it's been a couple of weeks since we saw you play music before the class on your guitar. It spontaneously made me so happy that I brought the laptop in front of the deities here, and I think they were really happy to hear you. So thank you so much.
Well, we're trying to make an offering to Krishna. Where we can do things as an offering, even chanting japa. When I chant my japa, I have Radha Muralidhar's picture there and Prabhupada, and I make every once in a while make a gesture. Lord, please accept this. I hope I'm doing this to please you. Hare Krishna. But music is normal, yeah, to glorify Krishna. Nanda Vihari wants to record some of these songs.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming, Adipusha Prabhu. They're almost open, the studio. And we'll get it.
But I have to go now. We're distributing Krishna's prasadam to the homeless.
Thank you, Adipusha Prabhu.
Over to Prabhupada.
Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Morning class Sangha ki Jai. Sarab says we're classmates. Yeah, we're all classmates now. We have the kid who's always in the back. That's Bhima, right? Can't hear anything.
He's the class clown.
Yeah. Who's the class clown?
Bhima.
Bhima, yeah, of course.
He's good at it.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
Now the altar call. Hold on. Stay for the altar call. We're going to call Adipusha Prabhu. Would you like to make the altar call? Is there a railing somewhere?
Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj says we have to join this movement every day.
Mm-hmm.
Lord, I'm yours. Please use me as you like.
Great, thank you. So it was the all call. Everyone is called.
Everyone can say that.
Yeah, and we are absolutely 100% free to choose Krishna. Choose devotional service in any circumstances.
Yeah.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Saurabh, please say Hare Krishna. Unmute yourself and say Hare Krishna. You'll be the finisher today. Saurabh.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay.